Hey everyone, this is Nate again, and I just wanted to walk you through this gem that I made almost 12 years ago. It's actually served me pretty well on a lot of projects, Rails projects, to kind of get some insight into my database models and also to print out kind of a template for my class definitions on my database models. I really haven't had to update it very much. I just kind of used it and never really paid much attention to it. But I was recently tasked with something at work that actually needs some of this introspection, or I need it to do a better job at what I'm trying to accomplish there. So what I ended up doing is coming in and kind of enhancing this gem a little bit. It's called ModelProbe. If you put it into your project, it automatically will mix into your database models, your ActiveRecord models. And you can actually do all sorts of interesting things. And rather than really show you this README, let's go do some interactivity with it and just take a look. So imagine I'm on a new project and we've got a user model there. So I can look at the user. Let's get this is kind of an empty project, but if this had been an actual production project or had data seeds or whatever in here, we would see some information about our user model. If we ask for user now, we can kind of get a little bit of introspection on this. But I would like to know more about this particular model. Like what's really happening under the hood with this user model? And if I went into the project and took a look here, there we go. So we're looking at the user model and we don't really have much, right? So, I mean, if this was a real application, you know, there'd be all sorts of code inside of this thing. Code here. Sometimes you might be running a gem like annotate models, but I've also worked at places where people don't want that. They don't want to see all those comments in here. So you could have like annotate comments up here, which is a fantastic gem. I've used it on a lot of projects. Sometimes, and you can configure it to put the comments at the bottom as well. But again, like you don't know when that thing's actually running. So has it drifted out of date? Do you need to re-annotate? If you don't have that wired up with like a commit hook or something, it's very possible that your annotations have drifted. And so they could be inaccurate. So what's the best option there? Well, if you really need to know, you can just do it at runtime because runtime is not going to lie to us. So we can ask for a probe of the user model, and that will print out all sorts of stuff for us. We get the actual DDL from the database itself, and we can see all of the columns, their types, whether or not they're required or nullable, if they have a default, what the indexes are. All that kind of stuff is visible both with the DDL, but you also get this nice color-coded thing here. Another cool aspect of this particular gem is we can actually ask it to print a model definition for us. And it'll actually figure out your foreign keys and relationships or kind of make some assumptions there based on Rails conventions. And we can just run a print model. And this is something I'll do on a new project. So if I'm doing the data modeling on a new project, I will come here and run this particular command and just grab this code. And then I would drop back into the project here and simply replace that. And then I start extending from there. But the cool thing about this is you now have this nice pattern of, and we'll go ahead and save that so that my editor stops yelling at me. But now we have this nice pattern of the top to bottom structure of where to put things inside of this model definition. It's pretty fantastic because I've seen a lot of messy models in my time. Another thing that you can do here is you can do a print fixture for your tests, which is pretty fantastic. Another neat thing about this particular project is if I pop this thing open and we take a look here at my Docker Compose, I'm running, and this is kind of just tangential to the actual gem here, but I needed to test it against multiple databases to make sure that this introspection would work. So I've got this Docker Compose file that runs MySQL and Postgres, and it also has SQLite on it based on the Docker file. So we install SQLite. We've got that available to us inside of the runtime, which means if I come back into the database YAML here, you can see I've got a configuration for each of these. And so let's just switch it and take a look at how this looks with other databases. So if we go to Postgres, and then I exit out of this and we just restart the console, we'll be connected to Postgres. And now I can ask this to probe. And the probe looks a little bit different because the DDL is different from Postgres. But the schema structure is the same. But we do get all this additional context from the database itself, which is pretty useful. Let's take a look at what it would look like if we did it with a SQLite. So there you go, a little bit simpler, but schema structure is the same, but we get all the context necessary to build a really deep understanding of what data we're operating with, what the underlying database structure actually is. We can easily see what might be needing an index or missing an index or something that might be incorrect there on the indexes, or if we see nullables that probably shouldn't be. Anyway, it's a pretty useful gem. I hope you get some mileage out of it. Let me know. Thanks.